are Rohan Tare, Head of IT Customer Interaction at ABN AMRO, who will be joined by Paul Boskma, Senior Director of Sales Engineering Europe at Mitek Systems. Rohan, Paul, please make your way to the stage. Thank you for coming to Amsterdam. Welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Thanks.
Here we go.
Hello, everybody, and great having us here. Let's have a little bit different discussion today. We would like to take you a little bit more into the world of generative AI, fraud, and what we see. I'm Paul Boskma, heading up our sales engineering team for Mitek Systems in Europe. Mitek is an identity provider, so we develop technology for detecting people in onboarding journeys, doing biometrics, detecting deepfakes. And today with me is Rohan Tare. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
You want to introduce yourself quickly, or?
Yes, my name is Rohan. I'm the IT engineering lead, head of IT within ABN AMRO department, which is called as Customer Digital Engagement, and mainly responsible for onboarding customers, digital identity, and managing customer data.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to explain a little bit about the change in fraud we see today. So when I started in identity a couple of years ago, we always saw traditional fraud. So that means that people are onboarding using, let's say, a passport, and they have altered the passport a little bit by changing the date or changing the name, maybe replacing the portrait image on the document. So during the onboarding phases, we added new technologies like we ask for a selfie image to compare to the document to make sure you're the owner of the document. Then we saw that people were using maybe a photo of a screen where you saw a face from somebody else. So we had to develop new technology like liveness detection. So that's what we call presentation attack detection. It's technology where we just need a single frame to make sure, hey, this person is a real person. But nowadays we see actually a big shift into more digital fraud. And with digital fraud, what we mean is actually that the fraudsters are not using real documents anymore or for your Facebook image to trying to onboard. We see actually that we see generative AI. Let ChatGPT create you a document, maybe create a complete digital identity online from a person who does not exist, and then try to inject it into a system to open a bank account, for example. And to showcase how easy that is nowadays, compared to 2 years ago, for example, I've created a quick movie where I show you how you can make a digital identity online for a person who does not exist, and how you can easily inject this into a system for onboarding. And I will stand here so I can see it myself a little bit, what it is. So I'll talk you through. So there are websites where you can just create a fake identity. So you just generate a name and anything like that. Now I'm also creating a portrait image of a person who does not exist. So I already have created a digital identity. Now I have a portrait image. Now you need to create an identity document. So there are also websites where I've created, for example, this great Dutch driver license. Looks really real. So now I've generated my digital content. Now I need to inject it into an onboarding system. And injecting is not that difficult anymore with the latest technology. So in this example, what I'm doing actually, here I need to prove I'm a live person. So what I'm doing is I'm changing my camera to a virtual camera where I'm going to replace my face in real time. And this is what we call a face swap. So here you can see I changed my face real time to somebody else. And now I'm just using this face to capture. So when you use liveness detection, this is a live taken image, right? This is actually a deepfake you were watching. So now I also need to add the identity document, and I'm following a similar process. So I'm just using a virtual camera where I will stream actually a still image and injecting it into the system. So it's actually that easy to inject a deepfake and a digital generated identity to a system. So, Rohan, when you look at the ABN AMRO and the onboarding journey you've made with the bank, can you elaborate or talk us a little bit through your experience with onboarding?
Yes, for sure. As Paul explained, so we are right now in a phase where we as a bank are highly regulated from the start. A few years ago, if you look at it, we started our digital transformations, meaning that the customers earlier used to walk into the branches. We are now transformed into sitting on their sofa and just click, 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 and they expect from us that we should onboard them with the least friction. But on the other side of the digital transformation is the highly regulation and the fraud which is upcoming. So if we look at our journey, like you rightly explained, the first step of the journey was making this digital onboarding available. And within the digital onboarding, first phase was the document upload. The second phase was there was quite some skeptic when we asked customers to take their selfies, so uploading their biometric selfies. But these days that has become very common, and now we have reached to a phase where these kind of frauds, and especially with the rise of Gen AI, it's becoming more and more critical for us as a bank to do our due diligence and shift left in the journey.
Okay, thank you. And when you look at the fraud and what needs to be done, I expect that the business wants a lot of customers to get into the portal and to become customers of the ABN AMRO bank. On the other hand, we have the fraud department, of course, who say no, we need to make very sure that we only onboard the good customers. How do you find that balance actually between user experience, fraud in your digital channels?
Good question, and I always call that as walking on a tightrope, because it's like I said, with the expectations of digital transformations and especially with Gen Z, they really see this as a friction, and so as our business, right? We, of course, every company wants to grow, and the first impression is how easy it is to become your customer. So for me, I think the key takeaway in that part is the onboarding journey should be simple, snappy, but at the same time also covering large number of documents, because we onboard customers from all over the world. Then the second challenge is, at the same time, it really needs to be, from the fraud perspective, that you have to have multi-layered approach. So on the left side, you basically try to capture the fraud as much as possible during the onboarding. But at the same time, once the customer onboarded, you still need to continuously monitor. And that's not something my department does, but we have transaction monitoring and capabilities like that in place to really prevent that kind of a fraud. But the third challenge, what we just saw now, is how easy it is and how cheap it is to create these kind of deep fakes. So there was also quite some transformation in that, right? So earlier we used to have humans as a step-up agents. When they see, hey, this picture looks fishy, the human was able to capture that kind of a fraud with the naked eyes. With this kind of technology and with Gen AI, it has become really simple to, which you just now saw, it really becomes simple to basically inject these kind of things in the chain. So it is really a layered approach. On the left side, you really make it from your capture point of view, but also it's a continuous battle against the AI, which we all need to fight.
Yeah, interesting. So it's a battle AI against AI. So that's actually where we are heading then. Is it also from a user experience perspective, you think? Is like the speed, is that being impacted with these new technologies?
Yeah,
the friction maybe?
From the user perspective, the good actor, the good customers really expect us to be, like I said, simple or snappy kind of onboarding. However, we need to do our due diligence. So that's why you saw, right, also in the capture, you must take multiple frames when you take the photo. So it's really right balance what we try to do, and that's why it's really difficult to keep up with the pace, and that's why we have partners like Mitek, where we sort of rely on these kind of technology because it's really continuously evolving.
Thank you, thank you. And when you look at what we call the customer life cycle, so typically an onboarding is a process where there's a little bit of friction, where the user needs to deliver a lot of information. Maybe the onboarding is not always that fast for a user. But we see also a lot of moments actually in the customer life cycle, maybe during account takeover scenarios. Maybe I have bought a new phone, I want to transfer my digital identity from the bank to my new device. Do you see differences in the level of assurance, how you identify customers in those flow compared to the onboarding? So maybe less friction or fraud attempts?
Yeah, that's another good question, right? So the same technology what we use in onboarding, there are multiple other use cases where we can reuse the same functionality, meaning when you buy a new device, of course you want your bank account onto the new device, so that we call it as device registration. So we use the same one. Also these days, if you walk into the branches, of course the branch employee also needs some kind of an assurance that the document you are providing is authentic. So there are multiple use cases where we have a modular setup that the same functionality can be brought to multiple use cases.
Thank you. And when we look a little bit ahead of, we heard about our regulations here, for example. In Europe, we see that the way how people can identify themselves is going to change very soon. So starting next year, there will be digital identities. So it means that maybe you can have your identity card in your wallet on your device. Or your driver license. We see already some countries experimenting with this. Do you think there will be an impact on your current user experience and the way you're onboarding customers?
Yeah, like I mentioned in the introduction, right? So the user expects quite a snappy onboarding. That means if they have a driver license today, they want us to accept that. It's the same thing what we see in the future, especially from the regulators and from a legislation point of view, that we as a bank, we really need to accept these EU identity wallets, and every country is going to issue them. So there are 27 member states, and every member state would have their own wallet. And we as a bank are, from a regulatory perspective, we should accept them. So that's why it's again from an identity perspective also evolving market. From a fraud perspective is also evolving market, and we really need to partner up with the right people, because we cannot just keep up with the pace how quickly these two things are evolving.
So it's interesting. So you need to support 27 different wallets, and people probably want to use a digital identity because that's easy. You always have it with you in the future. So there can be more friction, or do you think that we can mitigate that friction by smoothen that process, maybe even better than we do today?
Again, I don't have a sneak peek in the future, but if I look at the wallets in general, the way we use it with, for example, Apple Pay or Google Pay, we have the Patal Pass in the wallet itself. So for me, the user's expectations are going to rise and rise, that it's going to be very simple, that the identity sits in your Android or iPhone wallet, and somehow we need to plug that into our onboarding journey. So from my point of view, I think if there are partners who are going to aggregate these 27 wallets for a bank like us, because we cannot, like I said, we cannot keep up with the pace of how the identity is evolving.
Okay. And when you think about this, so new schemes will be added to onboard using digital. That means that the regulation is also going to change. We have also seen regulation change in the past. When we started with the document, then you had to do something with anti-impersonation, meaning that you need to be able to make sure you're dealing with a live person who's the owner of the document. So there were regulations about biometrics, about liveness detection, possibilities how to do that with an agent video conference call or other methodologies. Now we see that the market is shifting to generative AI fraud. It's more cyber-style attack frauds. Do you think that the regulation will also evolve into that direction?
Yeah, I believe so, because, for instance, there was quite a big no to process these kind of data in the past, but especially with the EU AI Act, and maybe you know a lot better than me in this particular way, but in the EU AI Act, they really mentioned that you can use these kind of information as long as it's there for the right purpose, right? So the regulators are also being watchful with the Gen AI evolution, and especially the EU AI Act says that the biometric information can be used for these kind of checks, which of course is comforting, because that's the way to prevent the fraud.
Okay, and I think that what we all also will see is that the generative AI part will probably be part of new regulations, as we also saw the development of biometrics being added to regulations or the liveness detection.
Yeah,
exactly. I think we are almost at our time. Maybe there are some questions.
Yes, I think there was one or two questions from...
Can I have sound? Yeah, thank you. Very fascinating, your video and speeches, by the way. We have one question from the room. How often do you see these advanced AI-supported attacks? Do you think that you catch them all? So often, frequency, do you any idea to both of you?
Yeah, I can explain from Mitek perspective. So we have more like a holistic view of all our customers, and we see this daily. And what we also see is we see it at scale. So that means actually that where traditional fraud was probably committed once or twice, if somebody finds let's say a hole in the system using a digital fraud, they're going to exploit it on a daily basis with higher volumes. So instead of 1 or 2, you see then 300 or 400. What we also notice is that we see trends where it starts at one country with one customer, and then it's moving around from country to country. So we definitely see trends with this. Do we catch them all? I think that might be a better question for Rohan, because if we don't catch it, he will probably hear from his fraud department that there's some strange activity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid I cannot, how do I say, exactly answer this question, but I can assure you the one thing that keeps me sometimes awake in the night is exactly this question, and it's really the cat and the mouse game. So the only way to deal with it is, like I mentioned, it's a layered approach. And it's a continuous monitoring. So it's not really fire and forget. You really need to continuously monitor your chain, and not just from the onboarding perspective, but how a person is doing transactions, etc. So it's really the layered defense, I would say. And yeah, if you, I just can give you a cliffhanger or a hint that if you see this technology is so easy, yeah, you can just predict. I don't have to give you an exact answer to that. It's quite easy to abuse any digital systems these days.
Very fascinating, cat and mouse. Paul, Rohan, thank you very much for coming and sharing your expertise. Thank you very much.
Thanks.